Hey guys, and welcome to episode 6 of Star Wars Starship Versus, the series where we take your favorite Star Wars spaceships, put them head to head, and see which comes out on top. The comments for last video had two very highly rated matchups. The first was the Nebulon-B versus the Arquitens-class light cruiser, and the second was the Looser Hulk battleship versus the MC-80 Home 1. I'm going to do both of these matchups in time, but since we've been focusing a lot on Mon Calamari ships lately, I think we should change it up today and we'll do the Nebulon-B versus the Arquitens light cruiser. The Arquitens light cruiser was an escort ship used by the Republic during the time of the Clone Wars. It wasn't often used for frontline combat like a Venator was, but would traditionally flank larger cruisers. No official numbers have really given the size of the ship specifically, but you can see that it's larger than a Consular class frigate and obviously much smaller than a Venator. I'd probably put it at around 200 to 250 meters. The Nebulon-B was a cruiser used most prolifically by the Rebellion during the Galactic Civil War and afterward. At 300 meters long, it was often used in a frontline combat role, as we saw, for example, in the Battle of Scarif. I'm going to be putting these ships head to head in three different categories: firepower, defensive capabilities, and fighter carrying capacity. However, I'm also going to be looking at each ship's intangibles, so just because one ship wins 2 or even 3 categories doesn't necessarily mean that it wins overall. I only have 2 other rules, and the first is that these battles are 1-on-1, so each ship only gets to bring with it what it would typically carry on board. No backup fighters, no other ships, just the 2 ships going head to head. Secondly, these ships are presumed to be captained by equally competent persons, so no ship is going to have an advantage because they would have had better pilots. Doesn't matter that one ship would have used clone officers and the other would have used rebellion officers. We're going to presume that that's all equal. Alright, so let's start with firepower, and as we're going to see throughout this battle, I think the Arquitens class here is really in over its head. The Arquitens used 4 dual turbo laser cannons as well as missile launchers for its ship-to-ship weaponry and had quad laser turrets for its anti-ship defenses. While the 300 meter long Nebulon-B, on the other hand, had 12 turbo lasers for anti-capital ship weapons and 12 laser cannons. The Nebulon-B was considered well armed for its size. Pound per pound was a pretty powerful ship, and remember, it was probably around 100 meters to 50 meters longer than the Arquitens class. So this category goes pretty easily to the Nebulon-B. Next, let's look at shielding, and this one is kind of hard because we don't really have a whole lot of information for either ship. And I guess I'll call this one a tie. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the Nebulon-B, given its much larger size and its more dedicated combat role, probably had stronger shielding and a stronger hull, especially given the fact that there is, at least in my opinion, a pretty noticeable advancement in warfare technology between the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War. I will say that the Nebulon-B does have that weak portion right in the middle where the engine is connected to the rest of the ships, and that would be a big target for any enemy that it faced. But again, I think it's safer just to call this category a tie. And speaking of tie, let's now look at the carrying capacity of each ship. The Arquitens was not known to carry a complement of starfighters, and given its size, that's not really surprising. It did have latches on the side where it could attach smaller ships, but there's no real indication that was standard practice. Let's now look at the Nebulon-B, and in just talking about this, I'm probably opening a can of worms. There have been source books in both Legends and canon, along with other material, that have stated that the Nebulon-B can hold around 24 fighters, or at least a couple of squadrons worth of fighters. However, when you look at the ship, there's no real hangar space, and I mean, you kind of have to wonder where it would really fit the fighters in anyway. However, I am persuaded by the fact that both canon and Legends have given this ship the ability to carry fighters. So for the purposes of this category, the Nebulon-B wins, and for the upcoming battle, I'll give it 12 X-Wings. Alright, I'll briefly talk about intangibles, but there's not really a whole lot to mention. The Arquitens was likely faster than the Nebulon-B, and the Nebulon-B has that weak spot in the middle. I can't really see a whole lot else that deserves mentioning at this point. Other than the fact that some Nebulon-Bs, like the Redemption, which can be seen in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, were used as hospital ships, though these were just a subset of the ships, and that's not really their standard practice. Alright, so it's time for the actual battle itself, and I think it's pretty clear at this point that one of the ships is pretty outclassed. That ship, of course, is the Arquitens. It is not only smaller than the Nebulon-B, but also weaker pound per pound. The Nebulon-B has more and most likely more powerful anti-ship weaponry. It has fighter support. It probably has a stronger hull and a stronger shield, and it was more suited for one-on-one battle. I think that the only real chance that the Arquitens has here is if it can hit the middle section of the Nebulon-B with one of its missiles, but I don't really think that that will do enough damage and that it'll be able to put enough other firepower in that area to really destroy it before it gets destroyed itself by the Nebulon-B. So with all that being said, I give this battle to the Nebulon-B and I give it to it 10 times out of 10. I really think that this one would be a pretty big stomp for the Rebel ship. But as always, I want to hear what you guys think. If you think that I'm wrong, please let me know down in the comments. I read every single one of them. And for those of you who want me to do one of your matchups, make sure that you get to the comments really early, and you can do that by both subscribing and clicking the notification bell. You'll get here before anyone else does, and the early comments are always the most highly voted. Also, if you got this far, take a chance to answer my question of the day, and it's this: how do you think the Nebulon-B carried fighters? Do you think maybe attached them to the outside, or had a hangar that we just can't see, or that there's a hangar somewhere and I'm just not seeing it, or perhaps that it didn't carry fighters at all? Let me know down in the comment. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and of course, may the force be with you.